graduate?
I graduated June of 1965, Newark High School.
And you told me you were the first.
We were the first class that spent 3 full years in the new school. And now it's been remodeled. Doesn't look anything like it used to.
I haven't been up to it. So you didn't go in the service right then?
No, I went to work at St. Regis Paper and for $1.94 an hour. And word came out that Kaiser Aluminum was hiring people for $3.25 an hour. So I went to Kaiser, and that's where I received the draft notice. So,
And you were married at the time?
yeah, I got married while I was at St. Regis Paper to Barbie's mother. But let's see, lived over in a little basement apartment over on Gay Street in East End of Newark. Got the notice and everything. Supposed to report over to Fort Hays, and from Fort Hays we got airplane ticket. We thought we were going to go to Fort Knox. Everybody went to Fort Knox. I was in the first group that didn't go to Fort Knox. And they took off from Columbus, Ohio, and they said, we're going to be landing in Columbus in 40-some minutes. Why would you take off from Columbus and land in Columbus? Well, it's Columbus, Georgia. Nobody told us it was Georgia, right? So we got there, and it was like midnight or so. We all unloaded, scared. You got your little bit of clothes and stuff. People were screaming, hollering, yelling at you, get in line and so on. But Fort Benning, the airborne school, Terry Coyle, one of my best friends standing next to me through the whole thing, got ready to send us from the reception center to your basic training company. And this sergeant come over and put his hand between the two of us, two close friends, 1,000 miles from home, and we got separated at that point. And I went to Sand Hill for basic training. I asked Terry Coyle on the phone about it. He said, I went to Sand Hill too. But there was a lot of troops being trained at that time. They was trying for the troop buildup. I never saw him. He wasn't in my outfit.
Right.
And basic training there, went through that, and ended up military police training at Fort Gordon, Georgia.
And tell us why you chose to do the military police.
I hadn't really thought about it, and when the family heard I was being drafted and so on, the one uncle had been an MP in World War II, in the Air Corps, Harold Daigle out of Johnstown, and he worked out at Roper Plant. He said, why don't you think about military police? I said, well, why would I do that? He says, there's always going to be a job for you when you get out. He says, plus, what's wrong with it? You're going to be a little bit different outfit. So they have a dream sheet. What do you want? What would you like to do while you're in the Army? Welcome to the Army. So I put military police, truck driver, or infantry. Because I've always heard they won't give you anything that you want. So they gave me military police. But right off the bat, you had to be a certain height, certain weight, absolutely nothing on your criminal record. And I didn't even have a parking ticket. I had nothing, So that put me right in there. And that was just, harassment to no end. And at the end of the 8 weeks of MP school, they said, the reason we give you so much harassment, how can you give orders in the future if you can't take orders? And like we all said, well, why didn't you tell us that the first week? Save all this headaches and stuff. But we trained with guys that were in communications and radio school. And they got to wear baseball hats and more relaxed, do all kinds of stuff. We had to run around with helmets all the time because that's what we were going to wear for the rest of our career. But it was okay there. And then they sent us home for a month around Christmas time of 66. And then I got orders for Presidio of San Francisco, and nobody knew what that was. We looked it up on the maps and stuff, and it's just a spot in San Francisco, not knowing what it was. Flew out there at the first of the 1967, and caught a taxi cab, took me right to the main gate, and they put me in a Jeep and took me up the hill to the mansion. Presidio was 6th Army headquarters, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful Army post, and it's now a park for the city of San Francisco since they gave it up. I was there for about 3.5, 4 months. My ex-wife showed up, my wife at the time. She wasn't supposed to because I was still a private, but she came across country with a girlfriend and ended up, we had a little apartment off the main post. Everything was so expensive, compared to what it was here. But they started giving us MP training again. And one of the men, Luther Cagle, he said, "Sergeant, we've already had this. Why are we doing it again?" He said, "Yeah, sure, you've already had it." He said, "Well, Sergeant, can I teach the class? Because I've already had it." Well, the next day they had us out, trained us with shotguns because we were going on prison duty. They knew they found out that we actually were MPs already. But you had all these guys lined up with a 12-gauge shotgun, double-aught buck, and they had a telephone pole set in the ground. You had to yell out certain orders, and then you fired around. You did that 3 times. Well, with 20-some guys, that post got blown to pieces. There wasn't anything left of it. It just fell over. Well, we also ended up 1 week in field training down at Fort Ord at the same time that Gary Lewis and the Playboys was there. But spinal meningitis was going around big that period of time. And weren't allowed to talk to anybody that was stationed there. We had to stay apart, sort of like the COVID thing now. You had to be way apart down there. But while I was in San Francisco, fellow MP and I went to the Avalon Ballroom. We saw a little group called Big Brother and Holding Company. It had a lead singer, was kind of funny, Janis Joplin. Saw the Jefferson Airplane and saw the Quicksilver Messenger Service. Very few people ever heard of them. They were good. But found out later that was all off limits and we weren't even supposed to be there. Well, then we got orders for Vietnam and came home for 30 days. And I always get places on time. I want to be on time. And it really worked out good because the first 3 guys that showed up was me, Marshall Dowdy, and Michael Brenner. The 3 of us were together. So we were at this reception center at Long Benoit Air Base. That night they sent us out on guard duty. And we had M14s, because that's what we trained with. They said it's getting dark, so they said, just get a hold of that rope and follow that rope. We got out there. I relieved the guy that was there and said, "Where's the ammo?" He said, "It's in the can there." So he left. I reached in there and it's dark. And all I can find is a bunch of shotgun shells for an M14 rifle. So scared to death, your first day in Vietnam, heat, stink, just this smell of kerosene and smoke and just general, not very clean place. And the sun started coming up, after, your full shift. But then you realize you were inside the middle of the base. They couldn't give you ammunition because if you'd been shooting, you would have been shooting in the backs of your own men. Right. So more harassment, So we were there for 3 days, and they'd have 2 formations. They'd call it that, and then send guys off to different places. They'd be guys in trucks and guys on helicopters leaving and so on. And all of a sudden, this Jeep shows up. And this guy's got a starched uniform on, the polished helmet, the whole thing, He says, "I got orders for these 3 guys here." He said, "Come on, we're going to take off. I'll take you onto the 527th MP Company." "Where's that?" "Downtown Saigon." And we're just kind of looking at each other, grinning, going, we're going to have it a little bit better than, the guys out in the field. Well, the guys that came
These were the same 3 guys.
The same 3, the 3 of them.
So since you all got there early, right?
1 day early got us into Saigon.
Okay.
The next group of guys went out in the field. Most of them slept in modified tents for a year. I had to sleep in an old run-down hotel with a maid and an air conditioner in the window. And it was called the International Hotel. It was a 527th MP Company. We were attached security with the 716th Military Police Battalion. A Company was there in the 527. Down the road was the Capital BOQ. That was the billets for BEQ, billets enlisted quarters. That was B Company. I got sent down here later on. But then they just started giving us some basic training and so on what to do there and so on. But first we had to qualify with the M16. We'd never even seen one other than pictures, much less touched one. So they took us down to the Vietnamese military police headquarters. They had a little tiny firing range outside. And they showed us how to load it, take it apart. Then they had us fire one magazine of like 20 rounds, one at a time, and then you hit the switch and then you emptied it. And it would just shoot the bullets out. Before the first one hit the ground, the last one was coming out. I mean, just, we found out that they were really touchy about being dirty too. So you keep it clean all the time, keep it clean. So they sent me out that night with another guy that was getting short, ready to come home. And we were out near the Vietnamese Armed Forces radio. And it was a bunker made out of sandbags and wood and stuff like, I mean, it was a really crude looking thing. And I thought, well, at least in Saigon, not out in mud or anything like that. Next day, they took us down to Vietnamese military police headquarters again in the basement. They said, we want to see that you're qualified with a 45. So I was terrible with a pistol. I had a sergeant once tell me there at MP school, he said, if you got a rifle and shooting it and you're aiming it at me, he said, I'll surrender. He said, but if you got your 45 out and telling me to surrender, I'm just going to laugh at you and run away because I know you can't hit me. And he was really truthful. They gave me a couple of points in MP school so I could qualify for the 45. But all they wanted to do really is see how to load it, unload it, take it apart, and so on and so forth. But next thing I knew, I was on post by myself, scared to death. And the one thing we didn't even talk about that before. MPs are also known as information police. Anybody coming up to you, they're lost. Okay, I've been here 3 days. How do I get to the Air Force base from here? I don't know. I don't know. At the end of the year, I knew what was going on there. But I was on a patrol one time. And for some reason, I was senior man on the patrol. And they told us to go to this Saigon River Bridge and pick up a convoy. It's my first convoy. I listed it at my thing there. And the driver said, well, hell, I don't know where the 051 gate is, we were in Tonsanute. He said, I know where the bridge is at. And I said, well, we'll figure it out. So anyway, we pulled up. Here come these armored personnel carriers and jeeps and deuce and a halves and just all kinds of stuff. I went up to the first jeep and I saluted the officer and I said, sir, I only know one way to the 051 gate. It's right through downtown. You don't want to do that, do you? He said, no, we go the outside route. And I said, would you mind riding in my jeep? I'll get in the back seat and you show us. He said, well, sure, I can do that. He jumped in, led that whole convoy right to the 051 gate. From that point on, I knew how to get there.
Exactly.
You just had to, if you didn't know the answer, just dazzle with a bunch of crap, something like that. But the big thing that the 716th is well known for was Tet Offensive. That was kind of a weird thing. I was working, I'd been shipped from the International Hotel to the Capitol Hotel, and I was working a traffic post every day. I had a different guy every day, showing them how to do this. We stopped the trucks, the jeeps, the cars, whatever was coming that was American military, to check their paperwork. Everybody had to have trip tickets to see if they were supposed to be in Saigon. Because Saigon, the traffic was horrible, absolutely horrible. Military trucks were running over top people on their bicycles and motorbikes and mopeds and so on. So lots of guys called us names. We made them turn around and leave and so on because they couldn't come there. There's no reason for them to be there, and the deuce happened, especially in that kind of traffic and so on. They all upset with us. When we were right next to the Fudo racetrack, there was a wall there, and the Fudo racetrack was right there. Well, I was also on alert force. Every night we'd come back and we were on alert force, but they never said anything to us. He said, okay, you're on alert force. Okay, what's that mean? So after about 2 or 3 weeks of this road check thing, the alarm went off. This is the first time I ever heard the alarm. They said, hey, stuff's going on. You know, the alert force, get ready, get down to the parking lot. And I got down there and had all our equipment and stuff on us and stuff. And you could hear guys screaming on the radios, you know, for help. And every little post had a little tiny radio that they could call in or whatever. And guys were crying and screaming, and it was spooky. And I didn't smoke. And the guy next to me lit a cigarette, and I said, can I take a drag on that? And I smoked for 30-something years.
So that was the beginning of your smoking career?
Yep. I never quit smoking from that point on. I smoked, I quit probably 15 years ago now, but I smoked all those years after that. If I didn't have cigarettes, we'd have cigars, just to pass time, you know, keep you calm, so on and so forth. But they told us to load up. They said Tonsanute Air Base has got a lot of shooting going on. We were probably 2-3 miles from Tonsanute Air Base where our hotel was in the parking lot. And we got in the back and the deuce and half, and I looked up and had a .50 caliber machine gun mounted on a ring over the driver's seat. I didn't even know we had .50 caliber machine guns. I knew that I was qualified.
Right.
I fired 3 bullets, so that made me qualified. They took a bunch of us out one day just to qualify the 50, and I was also M60 qualified, machine gun. But I had an old truck sitting out in the field, and there was about 50 of us, and each one fired 3 bullets. The truck disappeared after, you know, all these bullets hit it. But anyway, we started toward Tonsanute, and nothing had really happened out there other than a bunch of pot shots going on, a lot of them. And we were driving along, just looking around. People were all over on the rooftops. And I'd never seen that before, because the streets and everything was deserted after midnight. They had a curfew, nobody on the streets. So we were driving down the street, and I thought, my God, what's going on? And all of a sudden, everything stopped. And what's going on? What's going on? They said, somebody just attacked the embassy. We're going to go down there and help them. So we all turned. This little convoy of maybe 2 deuce and a halves and machine gun jeeps, you know, light weapons. That's all we had, machine guns and M16 and 45s. And ended up going down the main drag, Tran Hung Dow, that was the name of the street, and went right past the International. And there's the MP sitting out there at the M60 machine gun post. I had that many, many times. He just sitting back waving at us. He didn't know anything was going on.
Wow.
You could hear stuff pop, pop, bang, you know, nothing big. And we got down to within 1 block of the embassy, and standard procedure was you stopped, secured your vehicles, and then you proceeded on foot.
Okay.
Well, the first Jeep in down there was Sergeant Thomas, and I believe his name was Seabass, the other man. They didn't stop a block away like they were supposed to. He was a patrol sergeant, black MP, super guy. Didn't give me hell when I had him twice on patrol. And he found my radio. I had a little portable transistor radio. He said, what the hell's that? Well, that gets you in trouble, you know. I said, that's mine. He said, oh, okay. He turned it on. Aretha Franklin and Respect came on. I'm driving it. He said, all right, you know. And I thought he was the most uptight sergeant there was. And all of a sudden, he's sitting over there in the seat doing this now. It was him and the other guy. They pulled up in front, and both were killed immediately. They were hit with so many bullets, they both went out one side of the Jeep. And I'll always remember their helmets were laying out in the street. If you dropped your helmet, an MP helmet, everybody was on your rear end because you had them painted. You know, they were fancy. You saw mine. And both those helmets were laying out in the street. And both the MPs were laying in the street. But that was a little bit later. We stopped the trucks, everybody got out, everybody left. Somebody says, one of the sergeants said, who's qualified with the .50 caliber? I just put my hand up. I said, I am. He said, stay with the truck and watch that gun, because the 50 calibers up there. And I thought, oh, okay. Now I'm all alone with this damn truck, and a machine gun up there. So I was in front of a building, so I just step back into the doorway, and that's going to be where I was going to stay. I had a place to hide. Well, down the street, I could see another MP on one of the barracks way down the street. I looked down. He put his hand up. I put his hand up and waved. And I didn't know till the next morning it was Mike Brenner, one of the two guys, that came with me. And you think things. People were after you. They're after you. Nobody else in the Army. They're after Dana Smith. They're not after anybody else. Here come this gray Chevy down the street, just flying. And I thought, he's coming to get me. So the jack around in, I'm aiming. And this young guy's driving this United States Navy Chevy, heading to wherever he's going, and went right by me. And I thought, he probably had no idea that somebody was getting ready to kill him.
Yeah.
But later in the day, Brenner come down when he said, nobody's coming, because the shift was over, his son had come up. But they've been all kinds of shooting and banging and stuff going on. Helicopters flying over, trying to land on top of the embassy. I could see stuff around the corner from where I was at. Well, everything settled down, and Brenner came down, and this other MP come walking back, and he said, Sergeant so-and-so said for me to take the truck back to motor pool, and you go on down there. So Brenner and I went down to the embassy, and as we walked down the side street there, you'd see the Jeep, the hole in the wall, everything, was going on. And that's where I bent down and I picked up those 2 bullets. And I looked in the hole, and I saw what the VC had seen. There's 2 MPs laying probably 100 feet inside the gate or whatever it was. And everything had settled down. This is that part right there. But I come on around, I told the sergeant in charge, I said, where do you want us? And I told him what Brenner was doing. He says, good, you stay with us, And I just walked around looking, and there was just bodies everywhere. There was like 20, I believe, VC in there. But I couldn't believe how tore up they were. That was something that got me, because, little kid grow up, cowboy show. Oh, got shot in the chest. Okay.
Right.
A little bit different when it's real, But they were laying all over the place, and it was damaged to the outside of the building. You can see where the rocket-propelled grenades had gone off and so on. And the front gate was smashed where they pushed it open to the Jeep trying to get in. And let's see, what else was going on? It just, so many things were going on. All the VC wore a red band around their arm, one arm or both arm, whatever, and they were laying all over the place, and there was guys going around picking them up, and by the time I thought about it, those were all gone. But there was something I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was. But the sergeant said, just hang loose, stay here, we'll let you know what's going to be going on. And that's when Ambassador Bunker showed up. Westmoreland showed up, and in some of those pictures, I can show you where me, Mike Brenner, and Kirk Pagel from Seattle, Washington. That's us in that back in the back. But we were sitting right there watching all this going on,
Right.
But it was just kind of shocking. They started picking up the Vietnamese bodies, and somebody said something about, what about the MPs? So they quit picking up the Vietnamese, and they picked up the 4 MPs, and ended up, it was 5 MPs killed there, the 2 at the embassy and the 2 at the front gate. And then there was another one during the fighting, had been hit. He was on top of a building by himself shooting. Well, he got hit by somebody else. We don't know if it was a sniper or one of our own guys shot him with it. He was by himself. He wasn't supposed to be.
Okay.
So it ended up that's what I wanted. The Great Seal of the United States Embassy was laying out near the sidewalk. And I was walking around, I looked at it, and I thought, ought to be up closer to the embassy or something like that. And I picked it up, and I was looking at it, and I looked around. There was a Marine officer, because Marines are in charge of the security of the embassy. And he was looking at me, and I just knew he was reading my mind. That damn MP's going to try to steal that emblem, you know. Anyway, I picked it up, and I took it up, and I propped it against the embassy.
Right.
And that picture has gone all over the world, and I'm the one that moved it. Kurt Pagel from Seattle, Washington, was my witness. And he told me that on the phone and put it in a letter and all this and that. And then he passed away here a couple of years ago. But I did that. Well, then later, this public information officer was holding it, and they filmed it. And I thought, if he's trying to take credit for what I did, that was that. But let's see, I had been up since like 1 o'clock in the morning. Mike Brenner had been up since 8 o'clock the day before that. And they said, okay, we're going to keep like 8 to 12 of you guys here. And they started cleaning stuff up. They started putting chains around the gates because they were all broke by then. And they said, Sergeant, I don't know why. Maybe I just look like a person you can tell them to do something, they're going to do it. He said, I just want you to walk around and make sure the guys are okay. Make sure everybody stays awake. So I walked around the embassy, excuse me, probably a dozen times. And I come around once there, and Mike Brenner was sitting there giggling. And I said, are you okay? And he said, there's rabbits out in the grass. Excuse me. And I said, oh, okay. I said, do you want to take a few minute nap or something like that? He said, yeah, I'd appreciate that. And I swear he fell asleep within a minute.
Because he'd been up.
He was working on 48 hours.
Okay.
So he was tired, and he had no idea, none of us did, that he was on duty, for hours before all this happened. And he was awake hours before he went on duty.
Right.
So that's where he got all that time. So he slept for probably half hour or so. Other guys would kind of walk around making sure everybody's okay. And I told them what happened. They said, oh, okay. And they was laughing. We woke him up. He was fine. So I come back, and later I was leaning against the wall, walking along, and the guy says, God, are you all right? And I said, I'm just tired. He said, why don't you lay down for a few minutes? So I went to sleep in the gravel that was right next to the building, and that's where this big lump of gravel came into it. And then I realized that's where I found the pair of glasses and the watch. Because that's where one of the VC had died. I think, they claim that a couple of drivers for the embassy died there by accident. Don't know.
Okay.
They just happened to be available, for anybody that needed a driver there. But why were they there at that time? So anyway, I pushed that gravel up into a pillow, and I slept for about a half hour or so, and then woke up again. Well, a little later, the sun's up, for the next day, and we're all exhausted then. They sent most of us back to our barracks. Excuse me. And I always thought that I went right back to the embassy. Well, I was off for 2 days on other static posts for 2 days. And then I got assigned to the embassy guard for almost 3 weeks. I was either on the roof of the embassy or whatever, And we were on the roof of the embassy, and a guy come up there, and he said, I'm looking for Smith. I said, that's me. He said, I got a present for you down here. So I went off the helicopter pad, went down, and that was the roof. The helicopter pad was elevated. So I went down the stairway, and there was this orange crate. And what the hell is this? He said, this is for you. They said, because they said you're qualified. So M60 machine gun in a box, brand new, never been used. So I took it up onto the rooftop there, and guys were looking at it, and I unloaded it. I mean, you got an M60 machine gun, a bipod for the front, a pair of asbestos gloves, and an extra barrel in case it got broke. But you don't break barrels; they just overheat. You can switch them with the asbestos gloves. If you don't, the bullets will tend to maybe explode as soon as it goes into the barrel, getting ready to fire, because the barrel's so hot,
Right.
or it'll lock up. So anyway, we got it all together there, and I said, "Where's the ammo?" And that's where the guys got laughing, because there was no ammo for that 50 caliber, the deuce and a half. And everybody knew that, so they thought that was hilarious. They gave me another gun with no ammo. And the guy says, "Oh, there's a couple cases down below." So we all went down and brought like 6 or 8 cases of M60 machine gun ammo up there. But you couldn't shoot it from the roof.
You couldn't?
Well, you'd have to lean over the edge.
Okay.
So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then they had us take sledgehammers, and we knocked holes in the helipad support, because it was elevated probably 8 feet above the roof. So you'd have firing ports.
Okay.
Well, you couldn't shoot down. Well, there was a news story once back in the 70s or 80s or something like that. And before they I understand they tore the embassy down. I don't know. But they had this camera taking pictures, and there was these holes in the helicopter pad that we had smashed in there with sledgehammers. They just cleaned them all up and made them look nice, But I was the only guy qualified for the 60, but I showed everybody how to use one in case they needed it from that point on. But we were up there for like 3 weeks, and they decided we were eating sea rations, and we learned how to heat them from one of the guys from the 199th Light Infantry showed us how to use a piece of plastic explosives. You just peeled it off, light a match to it, and it just burned like a furnace for a few seconds, and that would heat your food up. So we had that all the time. We liked it. Everybody arguing about who's going to eat what and so on. Well, they decided we needed some fresh food. So they brought us this thing looked like a cooler. It had 3 tubes of food in it. It had meat and gravy, potatoes, and a vegetable, and then a package of rolls or something. And it was delicious. Loved it. So we ate almost all of it and sent it back. They sent it back to us again the next day, but they never cleaned it. So they put fresh food in with old food. In the tropics, you don't do that. You shouldn't do that kind of stuff. Well, I started feeling sick, and we had our Jeep parked in the lobby of the United States Embassy. Just drove up a couple steps, and you were in there, because big oak doors had opened up. And I was sitting in the back seat of the Jeep, and I was in charge of the radio. And I told one of the guys, I said, "I got to go to the restroom." And he says, "Okay, I'll watch the radio." So I went back there, and I had cramps and pain and bowel movements just one after the other. And all of a sudden, there's a knocking on the door, and the guy wants to know why I'm not coming back out. And I said, "I'm having problems here, He says, "Okay." So a little bit later, I'm still doing the same thing. He knocks on the door again. There's 2 of them coming in carrying the radio, and they sit it down in the stall with me. And I said, "You sure none of you guys can run the radio?" We don't want to run the radio. So for a few hours, the radio for the military police in Saigon at the American Embassy was running out of a stall in the restroom. That was me. But I had to report each hour what was going on or something. You imagine it was, "Oh, this is Smith. Oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Oh, my God. Everything's fine here."
So how long were you sick with that food poisoning?
The entire rest of the shift. I came out of there once or twice and had to go back. Lugging that. But I had to lug it back again because they was going to make me do it anyway. But I was scheduled to stay there. And they said, "We want you to go back to the billets and go to the doctor." So I went to the medical center, which was just a little hospital, third Field Medical Center, right in Saigon, and told them what I had, and they checked things, and they said, "Well, you got either severe diarrhea or a mild case of dysentery." He said, "Here, drink this stuff," and it was like a milk bottle of this chunky white liquid. And I said, "How much?" And he said, "All of it. Drink all of it." So the next day, I was back on the embassy. So that was the whole ordeal at the embassy was that way. People would show up, they'd take pictures, all kinds of people wanting their picture taken there. I was walking patrol in the parking lot, right outside the back door of the embassy. This guy steps out, and my jaw dropped. He said, "Hi, young man." It's Walter Cronkite. And I just went, who's he talking to? You know, it was me, you know. And I said, hello. And he was lighting a pipe. And he had a suit on. Well, not a complete suit. It was a leisure type suit, you know, they wore over there. Just a real baggy thing. Walter Cronkite, I've watched him my entire life, and he's standing right there by himself. Nobody else with him or nothing, you know. He come out smoking a pipe and walked over to another spot, and I didn't see him anymore after that. But I just couldn't believe it, you know.
Yeah.
But that was really the biggest part of what happened with us. We had a guy show up on the roof one night with a starlight scope, which is, you know, for night vision. Excuse me. And I'd never seen one. I'd heard about them. But you look through it and everything was a green negative. You could see it. But if there's something got bright, the whole thing would flash over to nothing. And he said, look down there in that alleyway down there. So little telescope and everything. I'm looking. And there's an old guy sitting down there next to a little pot. He's cooking.
Yeah.
And he lit his lighter, and it made that camera flash that quick, you know, just did light a cigarette or whatever, you know. But it wasn't very useful for us in a city like Saigon, you know.
Right.
There's lights everywhere. You know?
Yeah.
But Marshall Dowdy, the third guy, turned the Jeep over down the street. He got slightly wounded in the leg. His sergeant got shot in the butt. They were turning the corner, and somebody started shooting at him, whoever it was. He said, we just turned the Jeep up on the side, and we ran over to a building until we got some help there. He lives in Virginia, just a super nice guy. I talk to him every Christmas. That's his birthday. So I call him on Christmas Eve or something. But everybody, you're there for a year, 365 days. Every day somebody's coming and going, every day. It wasn't a unit, you know, it was just people coming there to serve their year. And the first one to leave of us three was Mike Brenner. He lives in Indianapolis. He was recruited heavily by the sheriff's department because when he came out, military police, he said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to carry a gun anymore. So he was into real estate, I believe. Talked to him one time. He called me. Somebody told him that I was trying to get hold of him, and I think it was Dowdy, because they were very good friends. But he could speak French. And that was one of the things in high school. Mrs. Morgan, she said, I'd like to see you take French and typing. I'm going to be a professional soldier. I don't want to know either one of those. If you could speak French, it was a French colony for 150 years, you know.
Yeah.
We called them dumb. Every Vietnamese could speak at least 2 languages. And we thought they were dumb.
Right.
So anyway, Mike Brenner could speak in French, and he talked to the people, and I'm just standing there going. But
And you ran into a couple of New York guys that you went to school with.
Two guys, Richard Hickman and Bud Kavins. Those 2 guys, we were on a patrol one day, and this truck went by us, and I told the guy, I said, Nick, I know that guy. Pull that truck over. We're going to give him a safety check. So we turned the lights and siren on, you know, on our Jeeps, and truck pulled over, and I could just see the guys boiling. Yeah, geez, why are they stopping us and all this and that? And they're checking their trip, taking, let's see your headlights, and let's see your driver's license and all that. And I walk around the corner, and I says, Richard, how's it going? Oh, Smith, you SOB, that's primary, how you doing? Other side of the earth bumping into a friend, right. You know, because I knew him well from high school. He's just a super nice guy, and I've spoken to his widow since he passed away. But the other one, we walked into a bar, and we were dressed all in the khakis and all that stuff. It was in the daytime, and the bar was pitch black, and I could hear some noise back in the corner. We carried little pin lights, and I turned it on. I saw a guy back there sitting next to this girl, and anyway, just started to walk out, and I said, I got to talk to that guy. So I went back and I said, soldier, I need to talk to you outside the door. And he goes, oh, Jerry, why are you bothering me? I ain't doing nothing here and all this and that. He come out the door and he went, oh, Smith, you SOB. But he got married after he came home, and his wife died in an auto accident here not too terribly long ago, but, well, a few years ago. And then he passed away not too long after that. But it's just both of them, you know. You bump into them, they're the other side of the earth.
Right.
Just, and Hickman was drafted with me. He's with that listing. But so many of those guys listed there have passed away. Jim Landis, he was a sheriff's department, you know. But just so many of the guys, you wonder what happened to them. That's what happened there.
And you took a poster off the wall that you brought in and showed
Yes.
that Army recruit was Army.
Yeah, it was a
Army.
maintenance poster. Remember, maintenance is your responsibility, you know, Army, United
Yeah.
States Army. Well, on the back of it, I divided it into 400 squares, and I marked down every day what I did. And I still got that poster, and I've sent it to a couple different places. I went to a reunion of the 716th Military Police here a few years ago down in Kentucky. And a couple of guys were looking at it going, my God, there I am. I was with you. I don't know who this old guy is, you know, talking to me now. But when I went into that reunion, almost 50 years later, I looked around the room and I said, who are all these old guys, you know, what are they? And the guy who was taking the names, you know, he's one of the officers of the 716th Reunion Group. He said, most common thing I hear, who are all these old guys? But I took a lot of photos, and through the 716th MPs and the 527th MP companies, they both had reunion type groups.
Right.
And I got the addresses for a lot of guys. And I sent photos that they didn't know anything about, you know. And surprisingly, I always write letters because I don't want to ambush anybody with a phone call or anything. I received a phone call from Minnesota. This was this guy. I took his picture. I'd only been there a few days. I took his picture. I sent him his picture. He says, that was my last day in Vietnam. You were the last person I worked with in Vietnam when you took that picture of me. You were the youngest guy in the unit. You took a picture of one of the oldest guys. He runs a furniture dealership.
Okay.
Another one was Thundercloud. Naturally, he's an American Indian. 6'6", 300 pounds. Hardly ever smiled. He was one big dude. I sent him 4 pictures of him because he was so big. Everybody took a picture of Thundercloud.
Oh, yeah.
He called me. The other guy had called me. He says, this is Thundercloud. And I said, oh my Lord, you know, I couldn't hardly believe it. He said, you wouldn't believe that the three pictures you sent me are the only pictures I got from Vietnam. He said, I had a whole bunch of them, and a bunch of souvenirs and a bunch of stuff I kept in my sister's house. He said, living on a reservation in Minnesota. The first guy lived in Pennsylvania. Minnesota, he drove a dump truck for one of the big mining companies up there. He said, not married at that time. He said, my sister was taking care of everything. Her house burned down.
Oh,
So everything disappeared. Right? And I said, well, I'm going to send you some more stuff if I can dig it up. He said, I'd really appreciate it. You know, you're just thinking, all these years later, I received a call from Hawaii. And the only reason I got the guy's name was I took a picture of another guy at the motor pool. And this guy was working on the trucks. I had no idea who my friend was anymore. But his name, the guy at the motor pool, I had his name. Well, his family was losing everything in Hawaii because of values of property. They've lived there forever, but their property taxes had gotten so high they didn't know where they was going to move. I just couldn't imagine that. You know, you lived there generations, and everything's so expensive they can't afford to live where they live, and you're on an island. It's like being on a ship and it catches on fire. Where are you going to go? But, I sent a few out in letters and so on, but I had one address for Captain so-and-so, the 527. Well, I sent him a picture. He was in the motor pool with another guy fixing hamburgers or something. And I get this letter back and it said, General so-and-so. You know, I'm thinking, well, you know, the generals send you something, they want money. You know, I want you to do the Wounded Warrior Project or
Right.
something. Well, it was General that had been a captain. And he sent me a nice note. I thought that was fantastic, you know. And then I kept track of the people that had passed away. And I sent a letter to Mrs. Waltman, and he's in one of the photos in that alleyway up at Continued Air Base where the MPs all got. He was the officer in charge, and he passed away. And I sent a note to his wife, and she sent me a nice letter back. But just little things like that. Then I had I was having a lot of trouble marriage-wise and stuff while I was in service, and I was going to drive for this lieutenant. He come out, got the Jeep, sat down. He says, "Okay, let's start driving." Ribic, I believe was his name. I've got it there. And we drove a few miles or something. He said, "I hear you're having problems." He said, "You know, you can get a divorce here and be completely divorced before you get home." And I'm going, "Well, I don't think it's that bad yet." And I thought, how did he know about that?
Right.
Unless somebody had let him know, you know, this guy's okay, but he's having problems, you know, so. But, yeah, that's the stuff that went on there. San Francisco was beautiful, unbelievably beautiful place. You know, here I'm from Newark, Ohio.
Right.
I stood in the window there at the barracks looking out. The guy said, "What the hell are you looking at?" And I said, "Look, there's the Bay Bridge, the Bay, San Francisco, you know, and the Golden Gate's over here to the side of it." We were probably 200 or 300 yards from the Golden Gate Bridge. We went out on formation, and they called us out once and said, "We want you to see something. We want to come out on the parade field." This is in San Francisco. Said, "We're just going to stand here for a few minutes. You got to see what's going to happen." Well, all of a sudden, the front end of a ship started coming underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. And I believe it was the Enterprise aircraft carrier. It seemed like it took 15 minutes for that ship to come underneath there, and they had to slow down outside the harbor and lay their mast down. It is that big. And most people jump off that bridge, die because of the impact, you know. But that ship come by, and it was just like, my Lord, it was like another city had decided to come in and go by, you know. Another time we were out there marching or something like that, said, "Okay, we're going to cut this short." And they said, "Okay, attention," everybody stopped, you know, because we were MPs. About face, we turned around, looked at our barracks, and this huge fog bank came in the middle of the day. Overtopped the barracks and stuff. They said, "Okay, hurry back to the barracks. You know, you'll be off for a few minutes until this settles down." I'd never seen fog like that in my life, you know.
Right. Roll in like that.
But just San Francisco and California in general, you know.
So when your tour of duty was up in Vietnam, then you came. Then were you done with the service, or?
If you came out of Vietnam with less than 90 days left, you were discharged and put into reserves. Well, if I had left on the day I was supposed to, I would have had like 94 days left, which meant I'd come home for leave and have to be sent back someplace else. So I extended for 1 week in Vietnam. And while I was on that extension, they started rocketing the city. And, you know, they're after me again. Right. Nobody else, just me. And anyway, you spent that extra week there scared because you didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something there. But I got my time off, you know, and went back to work at Kaiser and then became a firefighter here in Newark, you know, for 27 years. But there's 101 stories. I could talk to you for days. But
did you want to be a police officer when you got out?
When I got out, yeah, Kaiser was laying people off. Things were changing, you know, they were shutting down production and so on. And a couple of them said, you know, you ought to feel bad. You got people who've been here for 25 years, they're losing their job, and you're coming in working for 3 more months. That was the law. They had to hire me for bring me back for 90 more days. So now I'm unemployed. And I called my stepfather and told him I was going to take the test for Newark Police Department. He was a retired Newark police officer, Art Hartley. He was one of the first union presidents they ever had. But he said, "Come on out the house." They lived out near Johnstown in Sportsman's Club Road. He said, "Let's talk for a few minutes." And we had a couple beers, and he said, "Remember, as a policeman, you're going to work by yourself almost all the time. He said, take the fire test." then there'll be several of you working together almost all the time. There'll be at least two of you all the time. You know, if you're a medic or anything, you're going to be at least two guys, unless you're an officer. That doesn't count. But I took the test, and I took it with Jim Landis, and scored real well, and had a 1 year probationary period, and ended up 27 years on that place. Loved it, but politics scare you to death at times. Many times I was told they was going to lay men off, and that no matter if I was the youngest guy in the department or 10 in, we're going to lay off the youngest guy in the department. Okay, I got 10 guys behind me now. We're going to lay off 11 guys.
So once again, they were after you.
I always felt that way. Yeah. But that was an interesting career. You know, it's rewarding as hell. Spent a lot of time pumpers, rescue. Spent too much time on the medic. I didn't like the medic, but I was pretty good at it. I was an EMT. I wasn't a paramedic or anything. But you learned a lot. And in the last 7 years, I was working maintenance of fire hydrants in the vehicles and stuff like that. Helped build 2 vehicles, build an emergency squad and a ladder truck. So.
And they were special.
Oh yeah,
truck was.
The ladder truck was a 1968 in the back end, and it was a 1990 in the front end, because we had the front end purchased from Sutton in Columbus and brought over, and slid the 2 of them together. And Charlie McCormick Welding, he welded the thing all together, and we had a brand new old fire truck, and it ended up in one of the firehouse journals. You know, the Sutfran, they called it. It was a Marantz with a Sutton front end on it.
Okay.
And I learned so much working with the mechanic, John Lynch. He was a character, but I learned a tremendous amount from him. He could do just about anything. Also get in trouble a lot, but he just understood things.
Right.
As a kid, he had hot cars up in Utica and so on. He worked as a mechanic up at Van Wy Sand and Gravel. He said the difference between a Swiss watch and a bulldozer is the size of the bolt. And he said there's more nuts and bolts in that Swiss watch than there is in that bulldozer. He used bigger wrenches.
Yeah.
He was a character. But he passed away here not too awful long ago too. But he had left the fire service and was working for Sutton Corporation as a salesman. And he died up in Illinois, someplace in that area, I believe. Just health problems.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it with John.
When you came back, did you face any of the discrimination or some other?
I heard that. You know, we all heard that people were going to call you names, baby killers and stuff like that. And then when we came back, we came to Oakland. Well, in Oakland, California is right across the bridge from San Francisco. And San Francisco is where all the hippies were. You know, I mean, I lived right near Haight-Ashbury, and they told us to be careful. Don't get into it with any of these groups, because it won't be one of them. There'll be 50 of them. Well, you know, I caught a cab or a bus or whatever, went to the airport. Nobody said anything out of the line. And I always wondered how many guys actually were spit on or called baby killer. I was called baby killer once. I think I told you about that down at the fire station. Bill Miller was one of the firefighters. He was a year younger than me. He was an MP with the National Guard stationed out of Zanesville, and that's where he lived. And he said, "Did anybody ever call you baby killer?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Baby killer." So he managed to get his little jab in there. He was a super guy, very intelligent. He just passed away from the cancer here not too very long ago too. So.
Did you keep? I mean, you're pretty open about your Vietnam experience.
Yes,
a lot more open than a lot of.
Extremely, because I'm historically centered on things. I believe history is history. I don't think you should lie.
Were you always this open, or as time gone, has it changed? Because I know, we just commemorated 9/11, and I know after 9/11, the patriotism kind of got built back into America, and at that point, a lot of people felt they could talk.
Yeah.
And they felt appreciated. Was that your turning point, or had you always felt it pretty
I
open
had
about
it. I had it before that with other veterans. People on the street, they don't want to hear that. They didn't care, and that was okay with me. I had one little experience with one of my closest friends, Bill Gordon, who passed away here recently down in Junction City, of all places. He's born and raised in Junction City, was in the Marine Corps. He was 2 years older than me. He'd been to Vietnam, I think, was twice. And he come by my house there one day, visiting, and I had just laid out all my ribbons and your stripes and my police whistle and my Army Commendation Medal. I got an ARCOM. And he said, "When did you decide to do that?" And I said, "A couple of days ago." And he says, "I just did it a couple of days ago myself." Now, he had a lot more stuff. He was a Marine. Yeah, Marines they're all a bunch of characters. We got called one night in Saigon. They said there's a Vietnamese police are beating up on a civilian, and he looks like American. So they sent me and the other guy there, and we got there, and they beat the poop out of this guy pretty good. And he was sitting there all bleeding and stuff. And I said, "Are you American military?" Because I couldn't do anything to civilians. And he said, "No." So they smacked him around a bit more and threw him in the Jeep. Well, I got in trouble the next day. He was a Marine Guard. All he had to say was, "No, I'm not American military. I'm a Marine." Then we would have taken care of it. But he just, no. So he got himself beat up. Simply, but that's Marines. Marines are like that. I've always said that. But it's out of total respect.
And then you brought your camera.
Yeah, right.
So this camera, what was it again?
It's a Sears Happy Time camera. It's plastic. It's a 620, usually black and white film, but you could put color film in it too. But I carried it for the biggest part of my time there. It's a shame I didn't have one of like so many of the guys got now, or like the new cameras. I got a picture in my scrapbook here. I took a picture of an MP that was taking a picture of an MP. I love that. A picture of an MP, taking a picture of an MP, taking a picture. There's no end to it,
Right.
These guys had yashicas and Hitachis and all these different things, I never had any of that fancy stuff. I didn't have any money because I was sending it all home. Then it was all being.
But can you get that back out?
Sure.
But it wasn't originally Army green, right?
No, I was sent. Guys picked on me because I had this little black and white Sears Happy Time camera, Excuse me. Anyway, I was sent on everybody once in a while had a company detail. You had to do something. So they sent me down the motor pool, had a sand on a Jeep. They was getting ready to paint. So I sanded on it and everything. We put some primer on it, and then they was going to put shiny OD on it, olive drab. And I looked at that and I thought, "I'll paint that thing." They said, "Oh, you can't do that." So I took some tape, some Vietnamese coins and stuff, and put it on there, and I just sprayed the whole thing. So that's what it looks like now. But you can't use it anymore because through the years it just kind of split apart and stuff. But the little lens protector is banged up, and that's from the M16 rifle. This would hang over the barrel, and it would bang against the rifle while it sit between your legs there, Because the rifle would hold in place by the vacuum hose for the windshield wiper.
Yeah.
And if you needed it, you just pulled it, and the hose come right off, But yeah, that was something. Then,
Probably a lot of those guys don't have their yashicas and everything else now, and you still got your Happy Time camera.
yeah, but I can't use it. But I took the reunion, and the guys were laughing about it. I remember guys had those weird cameras, But Akai was a company that made tape players. And Kurt Pagel had an Akai, and it had a lot of Bobby Goldsboro songs and stuff on it. Those just tore your heart apart listening to those things. Funny Little Clown and stuff like that. But he had a big tape player, and I had little Sony reel-to-reels, and I still got them, but they recorded strictly by the power that was available, and the power in the city would go up and down. So when I play it on 110 volts, regular, it sounds almost like Donald Duck talking, But it's got Sandy Posey, the singer. She starts a song, and they interrupt it to say, "This note is to let civilians, let military know the city is not secure. Don't stand in groups on the corners waiting on buses. Be aware of your surroundings," this type of stuff, Then it went back to the music, and I saved that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it comes out kind of fast when you play that.
But it still plays?
Oh, yeah. One of these times, if I think of it or something like that, I think I still have two of them. Because somebody else had one they didn't want or something. Yeah, and it had little tape or reel-to-reels, what it was. Little, about that big.
Yeah.
I still got them. Yeah.
I know some guys would take those and record messages and send them home. Did you ever?
Yes, because the container that you bought the tape in was a mailing thing. No, I never did that because nobody back home had a tape player. That's, technology. Nobody had that.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to make sure you want to tell me about your service or?
It's funny. You can have the experiences when it happened. No big deal, Right. But later on, you think about it. Things like that changed. My buddy in the Marine Corps, we were talking there one day. Now, I know this is ridiculous. I cannot, I swear with God as my witness, remember ever having a bowel movement during basic training in MP school. He said, "Oh, come on, you can't go 16 weeks. I said, "I don't remember it. Why?" I remember it everywhere else. I remember it in California. I remember it in Saigon. I remember it in the Long Bend and stuff like that. But I think it had to do with coming from Newark. Even at Newark High School, there was a wall between every plot. In basic training, you had like 10 or 12 plots, everybody side by side. And it was kind of like your world's going, holy crap, and the urinals were side by side, and the sinks were side by side, and the shower is huge. A whole squad of guys could go in there at one time and shower with our uniforms and rifles. They'd send us through the infiltration course, where you crawl and the bullets are going over your head. We're covered with mud from one end to the other. And they said, "Okay, go clean your weapons up, change the gears and stuff." And we all took turns going into the shower and showering.
Fully clothed.
Yeah, with our rifles. Get the mud off of them, But that was just one of those things. I don't remember ever doing that.
Well, you made up for it in Saigon.
Oh, yeah, that was 16 weeks. I'm ready to go.